What's up, folks? I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and it's the return of PGA DFS. Super excited, and we're here to give you some PGA DFS picks and lineup advice, both FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo, for the Charles Schwab Challenge, the return of PGA down at Colonial in Fort Worth, Texas. Can't wait. We get a real North American sport back with huge prize pools on every site. So we're going to break down some lineup strategies here, some advice, give you a few picks, and then talk about the overall lineup constructions you should be using in various contest types. So before we get started, do me a favor, click that subscribe button below. That way you're notified when all of our latest videos are released. Plan on doing these PGA 10-minute videos once a week now that PGA is back in full form. Doing some MMA and UFC previews as well, so definitely click that subscribe button. If you like this video here, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. And if you have any questions about PGA DFS, this particular slate, DFS in general, comment below, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. All right, again, just one more thing before we do get started. We are going live on Twitch tonight, Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/OccupyFantasy. That link is in the description below. It'll be free. Answer everyone's questions live on air. And we're also giving away a couple copies of my Ultimate Guide, 19-chapter DFS ebook. Talks about the strategies I use to win the million. Talks about the foundational pieces you need to be a successful DFS player. So be sure to check that out tonight. And again, go follow us there to have a chance to win a copy of the Ultimate Guide for free. All right, so what you see on screen here as we get started is our daily plug, occupyfantasy.com. Again, this is free. The model is free until a major North American team sport returns. Looks like end of July for that, so we got some time here. Lots of free content for you. And we were blessed this week because the PGA Daily Plug was written by Niro Mata, who is a top 75 PGA DFS player according to RotoGrinders rankings, and I would argue even higher since the RotoGrinders rankings are volume-based, and Niro doesn't play a ton of volume, and he's a successful player. And he was generous enough to write this plug, talk about the players he's using his player pool, where they differ from the Occupy model, some lineup strategies to use. So I encourage you to check that out. That link is also in the description below. And in the plug, it talks about the betting odds to win, the weather for the course, the key stats you need to make decisions on your golfers this week, and then some picks as well. And it finishes off at the bottom. Give it a full read with lineup strategies for all contest types, as well as the types of contests you should be targeting based on what we know about the slate. But let's go back up really quickly and let's talk about this course in particular. And as Niro writes here, plotters, grinders, great short irons, and great short games, that's the preferred player profile at Colonial. So you take that into account, you look at what has been historically successful for player profiles at the Colonial, and you get these key stats: greens in regulation, fairways gained, par 4 efficiency, tons of par 4s on this course, shots gained on the approach, strokes gained on the approach, strokes gained in ball striking, scrambling, and then our secret sauce putting variance, which looks at golfers that are getting or should be getting some regression in their putting in a good and bad way. And we know putting is pretty frustrating from time to time, appears pretty random, but we can actually pinpoint golfers who are due to regress, whether that's positive or negative, and that's a big impact for high-risk contests. All right, let's jump over to the model just to show you what's over there. And in the model, it ranks every single player, FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. Again, go back and check out our previous video for the Players Championship in our channel that talks about how the Occupy model is built, what it uses, how to use it. But just a quick refresher, this OF index, this first column here, is a proprietary metric, takes into account more than 50 different unique metrics and numbers and pieces of information to rank all the golfers on the slate. For just one number, makes it easy to read, doesn't overload you with information. And then we also project ownership as well. And a recent addition after that Players Championship video is the cut percentage. And we've had a few questions about this. It is in the bottom at the legend underneath the model. Tells you what each column means. But it's not a projection. It's not based on Vegas. This is just this golfer's historical cut percentage over the last 2 years. So Rory McIlroy, for instance, every event he's played in, he's made the cut 92% of the time since the beginning of 2019. So there you go. That's that number. So talked about projected ownership, and this is pretty important. So let's take a look at, we'll start with DraftKings and see who we expect to be the highest owned golfers once Thursday's event begins. And you see here, 5 guys projected over the 15% mark on DraftKings. Webb Simpson, Sung J M, Patrick Reed, John Rahm, Colin Morikawa, and then a handful of guys in the 13 to 14% range. And we see this go all the way down. Tons of golfers in this field. We'll see some of the guys at the bottom be 0.1% owned. So pretty similar on FanDuel. Because of the pricing, golfers do get a little higher at the higher end in ownership. You'll see Webb Simpson 20%, Justin Thomas 18%, Rory 16% here, Reed, Finau, Xander, a couple other guys, tons of guys in this 15% range. So something to keep in mind if you're playing on the 2 different sites. Something else to take a look at, again, so this is how I get familiar with the slate. I look at who's projected to be the highest owned golfers. I look at where they rank in the model. And then I look at betting odds and see not only who is projected to finish highly in the tournament based on the betting markets and odds to win, but how those odds have changed through the course of the week. And through our back testing, we found that the most important metric for predicting fantasy success on DraftKings and FanDuel is actually projected ownership. Secondly is a player's odds to win. And this is, not including our OF index. OF index actually trumps all these metrics. But if you look at outside the OF index, it's ownership projections, odds to win, and then the line move, not as great as the odds to win, but about a third of the significance of odds to win, and still pretty important. So let's look at, if we can sort here by line moves in the Occupy model, golfers who have seen the biggest line moves at our partnered sportsbook, Sugar House in New Jersey, since the lines opened late last week. And a couple bottom dwellers here with big line moves. Again, the actual size of the move needs to be compared to what his odds to win are. Right? If you have a 100-cent line move on a plus 50,000 golfer, that's definitely not the same as a plus 100 move on, say, Rory McIlroy at plus 750. So keep that in mind. So we see a handful of golfers here. Morikawa, the highest owned golfer with a line move in his favor, 1,200 cents, moved from plus 4,500 to plus 3,300 to win the tournament. That's pretty significant. If you sort by OF index, you'll see that he actually ranks second in the model. So lots of numbers line up for Colin. And as Niramata actually pointed out in our PGA Daily Plug, Morikawa has not missed a cut in his professional career, and you'll see that with his 100% cut rate. So pretty much a lock that he misses the cut this week at Colonial. The other one to point out here at the top of our model is Corey Connors. Very surprising to see him at the top, him and Jim Furyk. I'm sure you're taken aback. The model always loves these 2 golfers and is built for high-risk contests. And while Connors and Furyk are definitely not known for their putters, that is the one piece of equipment that can get hot over the course of a weekend. And it's a lot easier to get hotter with a putter than it is to get hotter with, say, your irons or your driver. So Furyk and Connors, if they catch the right putting variance, very high upside based on their profile for this course. And Connors gets that 2,500 cent money line move in his favor. Pretty significant. Let's look at the opposite way. Fratelli, Knox, Bez, Louis, Lowry, Woodland, a couple big moves here. So again, I encourage you to check out the Occupy model in full. That link is also in the description below. Again, it's free, and you can check out all the line moves leading up until the slate locks Thursday morning. Okay, we talked about projected ownership. We've talked about line moves. Let's see if any other players stick out according to OF index. And to me, obviously we talked about Furyk, Connors, we talked about Morikawa. A lot of guys in this lower tier in the top of our model, Ches Reavie, Grillo, Van Rooyen, so Ryan Moore. I mean, a lot of these cheaper guys that are in this 4 to 5 to 7% range. So something to keep in mind, high-risk contest. Again, you'll look over and you'll see that someone like Corey Connors has one of the lowest cut percentage in the top of the model, and that should indicate to you that it is a high-risk play. So one other player we should talk about, and I think this narrative is out there, so we're unfortunately not giving you too many secrets, but if you don't follow the golf world, fortunately, Niramata does. He pointed this out in the Daily Plug, and it's Ryan Palmer. Now he ranks in the bottom half of the model, or the middle of the pack of the model. But his home course is Colonial. He's played there basically every day during this quarantine. He shot a ridiculous number 2 days ago. He said he's as confident as ever without the stands in the way, without the cameras, without the tents. He gets to play on his regular course as he normally would. He said he would bet on himself. And yeah, tons of great finishes at this course in the past. And while we don't take too much account into course history, sometimes you have to look at some outliers like Ryan Palmer, who at his home course feels very comfortable in this environment. And again, he's looked better in 2020. The model takes numbers back to 2019, which is why he ranks so low here. But thankfully, in the daily plug, we get context like that from Niramata. So I encourage you to take both resources and kind of pair them together. All right, so we talked about players, we talked about ownership, we've talked about line moves, betting odds. We talked about this in the Players Championship video back in March, which seems like forever ago. But let's talk about low risk and high risk lineup strategy before we get out of here. We've noted, we've done tons of research, and the especially in a large field like this, more than 100 golfers, the difference between the lowest price golfer and the highest price golfer is very wide. And what we found out, it's a pretty big edge, is that in high-risk contests, single entry GPPs, large field GPPs, your multipliers, 100-player leagues, satellites, whatever high-risk contest you're playing, you want to get that right balance of upside and ownership. Because if you're playing all 5% owned guys, pretty likely that it's a pretty bad lineup. You're playing some bad plays. This is a week-long sport. We have all week for ownership to tell us who are the best plays. People have had all week to figure out who the best plays are. So that's a big reason why ownership has a big predictive indicator of success in PGA. So what you want to do, this is the most important thing if you remember anything from this video, is when you make a high-risk PGA lineup, FanDuel or DraftKings, you want 2 players that are projected to be 15% or higher owned. You want 2 golfers, 5% or less, and you want 2 guys in the middle, so 5 to 15%. So 2 up top, 2 at the bottom, 2 in the middle. That gives you the right blend. Looking at the way we research lineups and optimal lineups, that gives you a massive edge over the field with that type of lineup construction. And just remember, don't get too locked in. If you see, let's sort by ownership percentage again really quickly. Again, if we go by that number, only 5 golfers are 15% or higher. But you can drop down a little bit. Again, we have to account for some buffer, some error here. So, maybe drop down to, in our model, if you're using that for projected ownership, guys 13% or higher, 14% or higher, guys 6% or lower, because we're not going to be 100% accurate. We're going to be as accurate as we can, and it's been very accurate in the past, but we're not going to be accurate down to the decimal point. So it's a rough number: 15% or higher, 2 guys; 5% or lower, 2 guys; 2 guys in the middle. Keep that in mind. That's the number one thing for PGA DFS. Low risk lineups, Niramata points out in the plug, he's a very good low risk player as well, which is something I personally can't say about any sport. But what you want to do, you want to maximize a couple things here. Again, we talked about ownership for the millionth time being important and predictive. Maximize projected ownership with cut percentage, so that you have guys who are projected to look good this week, guys who have historically made the cut in the past. Because in low risk contests, you have to get your golfers through the cut to get 4 rounds of action. It's very important. It's important for all contest types, but low risk, if you get 6 across, you're going to cash no matter what, pretty much. So you can combine those two. High ownership, high cut percentage. Someone like Webb Simpson makes the cut 96% of the time. Projected to be the highest owned golfer, should be probably the first guy you put into your lineup this week for your low risk contest. And then, thirdly, because the Occupy model is built for high risk contests, that should be the third thing you look at for your low risk lineups. Ownership first, cut percentage second, then OF index, because it's built for a high upside. So if you see someone, let's find someone here, like Morikawa, basically 15% projected ownership, one of the highest, 100% cut rate. Again, we've already jinxed him; he's going to miss the cut this week. And second in the model, another guy who is the perfect fit for a low risk lineup. Okay, so I hope that helps. Again, if you have questions about lineup construction, particular players, first we encourage you to join our Twitch, 10 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/OccupyFantasy Wednesday night. If you miss it, the replay will be available to everyone, but do try to encourage you to join it live, because we are giving away 2 copies of our ebook. And then if you have other questions, you can't make the Twitch, you don't feel like watching the video, comment below. We'll certainly answer your questions to the best of our abilities. And before we get out, click that subscribe button. Once again, we ask you, that way you get notified of all of our latest videos, and give us a thumbs up if you appreciate it, what we've done here. again, all of the links of everything you've seen on screen here are in the description below. The Twitch, the Occupy model, the PGA Daily Plug, everything's in there. And yeah, so good luck. Sports are back. We're excited. We don't have to wake up in the middle of the night for KBO. We don't have to get up at the ass crack of dawn for esports. We get to actually watch sports live throughout the day. And unlike outlaw golf, there's a live leaderboard, and we have to actually get to watch the players. Super exciting. So again, don't overextend yourself. I know it's exciting that PGA is back. Tons of satellites, tons of big contests out there, but let's not get too crazy. And best of luck to you. Again, I'm Brian Jester, Occupy Fantasy, and we'll talk to you soon.